Welcome back. We're taking a look at what's ahead for Africa. Let's get back to our panel right now. Let's go back to Beijing, to Hannah Ryder. And Hannah, China's involvement in the economic growth of Africa has been widely reported. The Chinese Foreign Minister, Wang Yi, just completed a tour of a number of countries in Africa. Let's take a listen to what he had to say.
We hope to instill a new and powerful driving force to our mutually beneficial cooperation through the joint efforts in building the Belt and Road by China and Africa, thus lifting the cooperation in various sectors to a new level and pushing the comprehensive strategic partnership between China and Africa forward to a new stage.
So, Anna, as we heard the Foreign Minister say, that China wants to elevate its involvement in Africa to a new stage, as the Minister put it. How and where do you see this expansion of Chinese involvement on the continent?
Well, just before the break, we had Beatrice mention the growth of a number of African countries, including Ethiopia, Rwanda, Senegal. These are all countries which are not dependent on natural resources, but looking to improve their industrialization strategies and their industrial sectors. And so this is a key area that China has pledged to help African countries with. China has pledged considerable sums of finance towards that, created institutions to support that, including the China-Africa Development Fund and a production capacity building fund as well. But there is also the issue that despite these plans and ideas from government, which are all in the right direction, it still is fairly difficult to attract Chinese firms to African countries and Chinese investors to African countries. So this will be something which China will have to work on, and African governments themselves will have to be working on, especially to promote their countries, promote better information as well about the situation on the ground. You know, we hear all about the problems, the poverty, the security issues, but actually on the ground, like you mentioned, and the situation is in many countries very dynamic, and there are many opportunities for growth and also international partnerships with exporting goods to the rest of the world,
now, Hannah,
including China. Yeah.
Here's another question that's been surfacing again and again, and that is the nature of China's involvement in Africa. And I know you've written quite a bit about this. How different is China's involvement in Africa compared to, say, the former colonial powers or Western countries right now?
Well, as you said, I've written about this, and I have quite strong views that it's not useful to make a comparison. It's not even appropriate to make a comparison of China to the colonial powers. In a way, it actually reduces what colonialism actually meant in the continent, and which was a very extreme and horrible experience. China's engagement is much more complex. If you look at the trade balances for a lot of countries, actually they're importing more Chinese goods than they are exporting to China or even the rest of the world. This is something which China, I think, can work on and support countries with directly, as well as supporting them in the way that it has been in the last 10 years or so, to build more infrastructure and so on. That should continue, of course, but the idea that China is meddling in African affairs is in many ways quite wrong.
And Nhlanhla, as you pointed out, South Africa has a new leader, well, the ANC rather, in South Africa has a new leader, and a man who could possibly become the new president of South Africa. He's been talking about economic reforms in South Africa, and as you pointed out, the country has a very high unemployment rate, especially among young people. Has the new leader of the ANC, Cyril Ramaphosa, has he been specific on what he plans to do?
Well, he's been very vague as yet to actually say what plans he will put in place, but only just touching on the fact that South Africa's economy really isn't performing as well as it should. Just looking at South Africa, our economy is currently growing at less than 1%, which is something that Cyril Ramaphosa will want to change. he is a proven businessman, somebody who has done very well to create a great business empire. But now it would be very interesting to see if he can implement some of those policies which he has within his companies to see how is it, can he use some of those plans to enhance the economy of the country on a bigger scale, how to attract more investment into the country, how to tackle a sluggish type of economy, or an economy that's growing in a very sluggish manner, how does he grow jobs? These are some of the questions that are being asked, but no concrete, we're not receiving any concrete answers as yet. Maybe he's also waiting for the right time or the right platform to actually give a full plan. I mean, he spoke last week at the ANC's rally celebrations in East London, giving a message of hope, giving a message of assurance to South Africans that he will fight corruption, or rather the ANC is adamant or insistent that it will eventually fight corruption, that it will fight state capture. These are elements that international ratings agency will also be looking at to see how does the government, or how does the ANC tackle issues regarding state capture and corruption? How does the country plan to grow the economy to greater heights? Looking at South Africa is a powerhouse, not just in the SADC region, but in the whole continent as well. If South Africa sneezes, the whole continent catches a cold somehow. So not just the continent, but the rest of the world will also be looking at South Africa to see how we tackle issues such as corruption and to attract more investment as well. And how do we grow employment or grow more jobs within the continent, especially for the youth.
Imani, let's look at some political developments in other parts of Africa. Central Africa, the Democratic Republic of Congo, the DRC, as it's sometimes called. There was a power-sharing agreement there, brokered in part by the Catholic Church.
Yep.
What's happened?
Well, currently we have finally a date for elections, which is going to be December 23rd of 2018. And while that seems like a very long time away from now, it actually might not be long enough. The peace agreement, as you mentioned, that came, we're sort of sharing power. We have a major issue in the Congo, and Joseph Kabila has held power since 2001, sort of ending what some people say was the end of a war, or actually contributed to a larger and more violent war. Millions of people have lost their lives in the country, and that the Congolese people are ready for peace. It's time, it's ready for stability, it's ready for economic growth. They have a wealth of natural resources. Everyone who owns a cell phone should thank the Congo, because part of the minerals and things that come from that country are in the devices that we use and rely on every single day. And we're seeing, hopefully, that there is going to be a change of power. It's needed. Now, the question is, who is that going to be next? And right now, there's still a lot of debate and controversy around who potentially is going to be their next president. But I will say that everyone is watching. We're hoping, and international influences are calling for peace in the region.
Right. Also, elections in Zimbabwe. We know,
Yes.
of course, that the longtime leader, Robert Mugabe, was replaced
Yes.
by his vice president, Emerson Mnangagwa.
Ending a 37-year rule. Absolutely.
Are you expecting many changes in Zimbabwe?
I'm hopefully expecting a lot of really positive changes. So recently, the current president announced that they're going to have elections, and he said 4 to 5 months' time. So I think, internationally, we're looking for him to set a firm date. Right now, his setting a date is actually really good for him, because unfortunately, there is still chaos in some of the oppositional parties leading up to this election. But hopefully, before June, we should see some election. We got to get the economy back on track in Zimbabwe, which was once literally called the breadbasket of Africa because it was so prosperous. We need to get inflation down. There's no reason for some of South Africa's, in terms of migration issues, come from people fleeing Zimbabwe. So I think that once we have an election and we start stabilizing the economy, I think we'll see the employment should go up, and then I think we'll also see a lot of people coming back to the country to restart their lives and participate in a new Zimbabwe.
Beatrice, if we look at Kenya, there was a lot of uncertainty there in the wake of the general election. In fact, the country had 2 elections after the first election was nullified by the Supreme Court. Is there now a bit of stability in the country politically?
Well, we could say it's pretty much back to normal. The government is back and functioning. The president was sworn in late November, so President Uhuru Kenyatta is now on his second term. He has set some 4 priorities on what he wants to achieve going into his second and final term. We still do have, of course, the opposition leader, Raila Odinga, maintaining that he would want to be sworn in as the people's president. Of course, the election was nullified at the request of the opposition party, NASA, but now they are saying that they do want to go ahead and swear in Raila Odinga as the people's president, not the president of Kenya, but the people's president. That is by many seen as largely symbolic because there is an already sitting president. For the moment, it's very much a wait and see, but the economy has started performing, the government has started performing, life has pretty much returned to track here in Kenya, even though there is a slight wait and see what will happen exactly with the opposition parties' threat to swear in their own president.
Nhlanhla, I want to get back to something that Imani talked about right at the beginning of the show, and that is the water crisis in South Africa. You have the city of Cape Town, not just a major city in South Africa, it's a major city on the continent, and possibly the first major city in the world that could run out of water in a very short space of time. How serious is this crisis, and what's being done about it?
Yes, water levels in Cape Town are at an all-time low, and there have been big concerns, especially like like the panelists highlighted, that it is affecting tourism. Cape Town is a major tourist destination in South Africa, and a lot of people are looking at the crisis currently. But the city has assured, or well, the municipality in Cape Town has assured that, look, it is dealing with the water crisis. It is encouraging households and businesses to moderate their usage of water and not to, for instance, to instill practices such as not watering their gardens as much as they used to, or not filling their pools. So the city is looking or going at a drive to really conserve water. But keep in mind that the water crisis is not just one that's impacting Cape Town. In recent months or recent years, we've also found the drought having hit other parts of the country as well. You look at agricultural areas such as the Free State and in Mpumalanga, rain levels or water levels haven't been as vast as they used to. So it is proving a big challenge for farmers. It is proving a big challenge for agriculture. It is proving a big challenge as well for tourism, not just in Cape Town, but the rest of the country as well.
Okay, and that's where we have to leave it. Thanks to all of you for joining us. That is it for this edition of The Heat, but the conversation continues online. Join us on CGTN America's Facebook page to comment on this or any other show, or chat with us on Twitter at CGTN America. I'm Anand Naidu in Washington, D.C. Thanks for being with us.